Walcott, Associate Professor in Psychology at East Carolina University. I'm Program Director of the Pediatric School Psychology Graduate Program. I've been a school psychologist for about 20 years now, working first as a practitioner in the public schools and then as a university trainer since 2003. I hold a psychology license and have significant experience in psychological assessment, consultation, intervention, and supervision. I've worked with children from a variety of ages and social and economic backgrounds and disability statuses. I currently serve as a co-investigator on a federal training grant that helps master's level graduate students learn interdisciplinary team approaches for school intervention, particularly as they work with students with disabilities. I also serve in a supporting role on a HRSA training grant that trains future psychologists to address behavioral health needs in integrated care settings, including school settings. My research has focused on the effects of mental health and medical conditions on the daily lives of children, particularly as they affect cognitive, academic, and behavioral outcomes. Overall, I'm interested in contributing to the science and practice of school psychology by identifying mechanisms that support positive outcomes for children through early screening and early intervention, particularly for those who come from rural or impoverished areas. When I began my career, my research reflected my interest in developmental psychology and psychopathology. Like school psych, these perspectives stress the importance of an ecological approach to the assessment and treatment of childhood problems. It's not all within the child. Home and school environmental factors are big influences on childhood problems. I first focused on the emotional and academic outcomes associated with ADHD and attention problems. More recently, I've engaged in collaborative research with colleagues in health and pediatrics, with my expertise bringing the knowledge of educational impacts to chronic health conditions. Currently in my lab, we have projects running that examine the effects of race, poverty, and early attention problems on various academic and behavioral outcomes. I have graduate students in my lab ranging from first-year students to fourth-year students, and we invite undergrads to assist with projects as well. I encourage more advanced graduate students to mentor the undergraduate lab members, and we all try to encourage each other and assist each other in project development, data collection and analyses, and dissemination to conferences and journals. So that's a bit about me and my research lab. Thanks for taking time to learn more about ECU and our graduate programs in school psychology.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jeannie Golden, and I'm an associate professor in the Pediatric School Psychology program. I just wanted to share some information about my research. Over the past 10 years, I have had 2 grants to do school-based mental health counseling, where we worked with students from low socioeconomic backgrounds who had a lot of anxiety, depression, cutting, suicide ideation, and we were able to make a significant difference by having graduate students become counselors in the schools. And so right now we're doing data analysis and writing articles related to that. We also started a volunteer tutoring program for undergraduate students, which has had an impact on their grades. And so that has been my research for the last several years. More recently, I have looked into trauma, childhood trauma, and how that relates to callous and unemotional traits in later life. And I currently have a doctoral student who's looking at the relationship of trauma to OCD. I have currently 2 grants that I'm applying for. One is to the Association for Behavior Analysis, and it's an ABA awareness video for parenting and teaching strategies. So what we would be doing is developing vignettes of typically challenging behaviors and how ABA can really make a difference for parents and teachers. And we're trying to get that information out to schools and pediatricians, because a lot of times pediatricians kind of refer kids or to psychiatrists or for medication, and there are so many options in terms of behavioral strategies. Finally, I'm working on a diversity grant, and its approaches to student-teacher interactions to decrease suspensions and other disciplinary techniques that are used in the schools, because these disproportionately affect students of color. So we're trying to encourage teachers and student support personnel to use other methods. And that's kind of a synopsis of my research. So I would be happy to talk to you more about it. And you can reach me at goldenj@ecu.edu. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brandon Schultz, Associate Professor in the Pediatric School Psychology program at ECU. I direct a school behavior consultation lab, which is currently focused on interventions for middle and high school students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I came to ECU in 2013 with a little over 10 years experience as a clinical research scientist. So as I was earning my doctorate in education with a concentration in school psychology, I was conducting research with a research team that was developing and testing the Challenging Horizons program. After I graduated in 2008, I was hired on full-time with that research team. And then in 2009, actually moved with that research team from James Madison University to Ohio University to continue that research. So my role is somewhat unique in the fact that with my doctorate, I was conducting research entirely and not teaching or doing any traditional academic work. All of my work was out in the field, doing consultation with teachers, supervising students as they were getting research experiences and so forth. In 2013, I made the decision to come to ECU and take on more of a traditional role as a professor because I miss teaching and I wanted to be back in the classroom teaching again. But I have also continued my research while I'm here. In 2018, I was awarded a large research grant from the Institute of Education Sciences, which is the research arm of the Federal Department of Education, to develop an educational video game for adolescents with ADHD. The idea is that the kinds of interventions that we were using in the Challenging Horizons program, while they are very effective, they're also difficult to implement in schools. They require a lot of involvement and work on the part of teachers. So the hope with this video game is to take some of the burden off of teachers. The game itself is meant to train some of these ADHD coping skills that we know from the Challenging Horizons program can be effective for that population. And so the hope is that the game will be engaging, that kids will play that game and not realize that they're even learning some of these skills. And then eventually we shift back to a real world intervention where a teacher will help the student transfer the skills trained in the game to the real world. I'm working with researchers still at Ohio University and the Game Research and Immersive Design Lab there to develop the game. We meet periodically and we've been able to continue our collaboration even through the pandemic. We're hoping that as we move out of the pandemic in the fall of this year, we'll actually begin to do a randomized controlled trial where we test the efficacy of the game and then potentially move forward with it if it shows promise. At the same time, I'm also submitting grants to try to look at systemic interventions that could help schools improve their approach to school mental health efforts. I currently have a grant out now that would be a very large grant that would have us collaborating with the University of South Carolina, and we're hoping that we get some good news on that very soon, perhaps actually February of this year. So that is my research and what I'm doing currently. I am hoping to bring students into the lab in the coming years and would potentially be coming to you if you decide to come to ECU to see if you might be interested in any of the research projects I currently have underway. Outside of that, I do a lot of work helping students with their theses and dissertations, and I'm currently on a lot of those committees right now because my research background and publication background. So I will be, regardless of whether you would be in my lab, I would be happy to help you along those lines. If you have any questions about my lab, the research we're conducting, or anything I've mentioned here, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have by email, and looking forward to seeing everyone on our virtual visitation day.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Smith, and I'm an assistant professor in East Carolina University's Pediatric School Psychology program. And I am so excited you're considering our program. I have three main areas that I do in the program, including research, some supervision in clinical practica, and then teaching of our graduate classes. So first, my research includes a whole lab called the Youth Health Lab. I think we have some really exciting work going on. Some of that work takes place here in the Pediatric Hem-Onc Clinic, and some of the work takes place, at computers or from our students' offices or lab spaces or homes. My projects range from pediatric epilepsy to youth with pediatric sickle cell disease. We also do work in using great national data sets, and my main interests are related to medication adherence, or how well a child with a chronic illness takes their medicine, and the healthcare transition from pediatric care to adult care. So we work with a lot of adolescents in our lab with chronic illnesses. Here's an example from one of our lab meetings on what current projects we had going on at the time. And you can see we had a grant study going on that my students were involved in. We had a focus group study where we had students meet with youth with epilepsy and their parents and hear about their experiences. And then a longitudinal study going on where we look at medication adherence over time using electronic monitors of adherence. So we have a lot of exciting work going on, and it's changing all the time. My research is something that I'd like to have my graduate students involved in, but I also like to encourage them to pursue some of their own interests and really support them in that. The second thing that I do in our program is supervise students during clinical practica, and that includes a practica here at the ECU Pediatric Hem-Onc Clinic, where I supervise students that are learning about how to treat children with cancer or blood disorders like hemophilia or sickle cell disease. And we do brief kind of solution-based work. A lot of it's focused on cognitive behavioral therapy or some acceptance and commitment therapy. I also have students at the pediatric specialty clinic working with youth with pediatric type 1 diabetes and some type 2 diabetes. So lots of interesting stuff going on. The third way I'm involved in our program is through teaching. I teach 2 of our classes, one in child and adolescent psychopathology, and then our pediatric school psychology seminar courses for our advanced doc students. I'm so glad you're considering ECU. I really hope that you decide to come join us and join my lab. Please always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Debbie Thurneck. I'm a clinical associate professor in the Pediatric School Psychology program. I'm not going to talk to you about research as my colleagues did, because I actually don't do any research in my role with the program. What I do is primarily teach and supervise. I do a lot of supervising, and I also serve as the director of clinical training, and that's what I mainly want to talk to you about. Our students do follow a pretty typical and traditional route when we talk about the different practicum experiences that they complete and the order in which they do them. It usually starts in the second year. So in the second year, our students are placed in a school-based setting. So they're basically working as a school psychologist for both the fall and spring semesters, doing interventions, assessments, some systems level work within the schools, and our students are doing that 2 days a week for both of those semesters. Following that experience, the students then will start doing some work in our in-house training clinic under my supervision. That's pretty much the whole third year experience. And in that placement, our students are able to start seeing clients, usually children, their parents, some young adults, certainly adolescents, in providing them interventions and evaluations for a number of different questions: ADHD, LD, sometimes anxiety or depression or other mood disorders. After that placement, usually summer before 4th year or maybe the beginning of 4th year, that's when students start doing placements more off campus. So it could be clinics that are affiliated with ECU or part of ECU, like ECU's Family Autism Center or ECU's Family Medicine unit, which is kind of affiliated with our hospital. Some students have actually been at our local hospital for those placements. Sometimes people will decide to stay within the schools, or sometimes they'll do more integrated care with the new practice that started up. Actually, some of our graduates from our program have started a practice where they're doing both outpatient work and some integrated care with pediatric offices here in Greenville. Following those placements, it gets very exciting. That's when our students will start applying for their pre-doctoral internship placement. We've had a lot of success with internship here in our Ped School program. 100% of our students who have applied to be a part of the internship, the APIC internship, which you'll learn a lot more about as you go through your doctoral studies, 100% match rate we have had, and that's very exciting. We're very proud of that, and our students have worked really hard for it. Our students go really exciting places. Right now, we actually have 5 students out on internship. 2 students are working more within schools, not necessarily traditional schools in every sense, but we have 1 student who's at the Milton Hershey School up in Pennsylvania doing her internship. We have another student who's doing her internship with the Illinois School Psychology Internship Consortium, and she's getting to work in a couple different school settings. One is even at a college setting with their Disability Services office. Then we have 3 students who are doing more medical settings. We have 1 student who is out in Nebraska at the Monroe Meyer Institute. We have another student who is at Geisinger Health Center in Pennsylvania. Both of those students are doing a lot of integrated care, meaning they're working side by side with physicians in different clinics through those health centers. And then we have a 5th student who is at Nemours DuPont Children's Hospital in Delaware, Wilmington, Delaware, and she's also providing a lot of integrated services and some specialty services as well. If you have any questions about the practicum sequence or where you might be doing that or what that looks like, please let me know. I'm available by email. Certainly you could call me as well, but I'm happy to talk more about that if you have questions. On behalf of the faculty of the Ped School program, we want to thank you for your interest. Thank you for taking the time to watch the videos. If you have questions or you just want to hear more about anything that you heard about today, please let us know. All of us are available and we would be happy to talk to you more. And we certainly look forward to talking to you soon.